I had just found out about 2 weeks prior that I was getting laid off. So I was coming into in a very vulnerable state, really kind of feeling, a little bit like, oh my gosh, my life is now a bit in upheaval. But what was so wonderful was being around this group of folks who were very centered, who were very focused, some of which had already experienced some of the things I had gone through.
Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. What gets you up in the morning? What drives your decisions? What do you stand for? No idea, not even sure where to start? I use my values to guide my life and career. It's the basis of how I've built boundaries for myself and stuck to them. Are you ready to dig into what matters to you? Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. That's thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet to get to your core values and take action on what matters most. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I am so excited to share this discussion with you. Today I'm doing one of my favorite things, and I'm spending time and interviewing some of my coaching clients. You'll hear from 3 high-achieving, values-driven leaders that were each part of my You Belong in the C-Suite group coaching program. They all participated in different cohorts. I have had 8 cohorts over the last 3 years, and right now we have our waitlist open for applications for cohort 9, which will start in 2025. Not only did these leaders invest in their own development by joining group coaching, they were also attendees of my first in-person retreat. The retreat was for alumni or current participants in the You Belong in the C-Suite group coaching program. I'd never done a retreat before. And the idea was inspired by one of our participants, and you'll get to hear that story in the episode today. The format of the retreat was broken up into different content areas. The first day was focused on Values First Leader Certification, in which leaders identified their values, built a boundary, and discussed using values to manage through conflict. The second day, we focused on advocating for yourself and strategic networking. We closed out with a guest speaker, Dr. Julie Fratantoni, a cognitive neuroscientist, and she talked about how to ground ourselves and shared simple techniques for better brain health. You can also learn from Dr. Fratantoni on episode 151 called Better Brain Health. We will link that in the show notes as well. I loved the retreat, and more importantly, I loved connecting with these leaders that you'll hear in today's discussion. It felt like the right extension, the retreat, it felt like the right extension of my group coaching, a way to continue to build community together. It was energizing for me, my team, and participants. Joining me today on the podcast to talk about their careers and experience are Kate Helmick, Tara Hesson, and Marilyn Woodruff. Kate Helmick is a leader that values achievement, impact, balance, and compassion. She does this by asking how things should be done instead of how things are done, developing her team for today and the future, prioritizing balance for her team and herself, and working from a place of empathy and curiosity rather than judgment. Her mantra is assume good intent in others and always be curious about them. With over 15 years of experience developing and leading high-performing client-facing teams across several industries, she's currently serving as the Vice President of Client Experience at a cutting-edge document strategy and digital solutions company dedicated to exceeding client expectations and meeting diverse consumer needs. Kate joined group coaching looking for guidance and making an intentional next step in her career. Working with the Values First framework clarified what she truly valued personally and professionally and provided guidance on how to find alignment within her next role and organization. Tara Hesson is a leadership coach, facilitator, and HR consultant. She founded Hesson Talent Solutions, a firm dedicated to helping individuals, teams, and organizations design and implement strategies that foster growth, enhance performance, and unlock potential. With over 3 decades of hands-on experience in management and leadership roles, Tara has a proven track record in identifying and developing talent. She has coached, trained, and consulted with individuals at all levels of an organization in various industries. Known for building strong relationships, she honors each person's unique strengths and skills. Her coaching style, characterized by compassion, collaboration, creativity, and consultation, ensures that her clients feel deeply cared for, understood, and supported. Tara graduated from Abilene Christian University with a bachelor's in business administration. She holds a master's of business administration from Angelo State University and a master's of science and management with a concentration in organizational behavior and executive coaching from the University of Texas at Dallas. Marilyn Woodruff is a technology leader and knitwear designer in Dallas, Texas. She currently works in the financial services industry as a leader of digital transformation, where she is known for her systemic problem solving, simplification of processes, and building the capability of others. Marilyn also designs knitwear patterns and teaches knitting classes online and in person through her company at Knits and Designs. In our discussion, we talked about the biggest takeaways that each of them got from their participation in the retreat, from their individual growth and reflection to building community. We also talked about some of the struggles and tension points, or ick factors, that we all kind of sometimes still struggle with, like imposter syndrome, advocating for yourself authentically, and networking authentically. We talked about the importance of relationships for each of them and how the Values First framework has helped them inside and, more importantly, outside of work. I do what I do because of my values of growth, development, achievement, and advocacy. And by building the capability of leaders like you'll hear from today, I know that I'm impacting their lives, the lives of the organizations that they work within, because these leaders are building cultures that are inclusive, they are leading authentically, and they're making better decisions with their values guiding the way. So I know that you are going to love our discussion. Please feel free to reach out to any of the leaders that you hear from today if something that they say resonates with you, and we will put their contact information in the show notes. To learn more about the You Belong in the C-Suite group coaching program, go to thecatchgroup.com/group coaching. The waitlist is now open for our next cohort in 2025. Let's get started. Well, I am more than excited to welcome you all to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, friends.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. I am really excited to have members of the You Belong in the C-Suite group coaching program and our first ever retreat participants too. So I'd love for each of you to just introduce yourselves, and maybe since, I'm kind of obsessed with values, you can share a couple of your values with us. So who wants to go first?
Hi, I'm Marilyn, and my values, I have several, but 3 of them that really came to light at the retreat and have been living on since then are authenticity, courage, and creativity. And I try to wind those through everything. I have my hands in a lot of pots, and so Laura has really helped with integrating all of that into who I am as a leader and as a person.
Thanks so much, Marilyn.
My name is Kate. Very happy to be here. So a few of my values are achievement, impact, balance, and compassion. And like Marilyn, I got a lot of clarity coming into the coaching sessions in particular, just trying to figure out really who I was as a leader so that I could figure out what I wanted to do next. Really looking for alignment, which I know, Laura, that's one of your favorite words.
Yeah.
And so just found the coaching to be incredibly helpful in really just figuring out who I am, what I represent, and how I want to show up.
Thanks so much, Kate.
Hi, I'm Tara, and a couple of my values are growth, development, kindness, and impact. And I really try to live all of these, not only growth for myself, but growth for others, developing others, trying to have an impact in every relationship and every aspect of my life, but doing it in a very kind way, very respectful and trying to make people feel like they're a person and a human, and also honoring that in myself too. And I think what I realized in this program as well is that it's not only about giving to others, but it's about giving to yourself too, and really honing what is important to you as an individual and how that can make you even better overall if you give yourself the time to think about yourself first, which sometimes is hard, especially for women to do.
That's so well said, Tara. My goodness. So these are some of my favorite kinds of conversations to have with you all. Just to first and foremost, I just love that that you're here. That's so fun. It feels a little meta to have you on the podcast because often I'm talking about overall client things and different themes. But some of my favorite episodes are actually talking to the leaders who, like you said, Tara, are prioritizing their own development and, just being super authentic and transparent with their learnings, because I know all of these conversations help others that are listening. So thank you so much for doing that and doing that in this kind of container with me. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time. So thank you. So you all were participants in group coaching. So group coaching is, how many cohorts have I had now? I think 8. So I've been doing this for about 3 years now, going into the 4th. It was one of the first things I did when I launched my business. And I was really excited about it because I wanted to basically build the thing that I needed that I did not have when I was an executive and in the C-suite. And so that's again why I called it You Belong in the C-Suite, because I kind of didn't feel like I belonged. And so I brought some of that imposter syndrome with me and mindset and just like negative mindset, limiting beliefs, all those things. And so when I built it and I created it, I really tried to, interweave some of the content from Values First and the Values First framework to really ground people and, bring you in a kind of a learning journey, I guess, with other people. Because the other beauty of this is that, yeah, I'm your guide and your coach, but I think also the beauty of it is the conversations that everybody has together. And so I really wanted to create that. And so, group coaching is basically 4 to 5 executive women that are in a coaching cohort together. We have high confidentiality, high trust, and we go through our own learning journeys, but with some of the same content. We meet monthly. Most of them is virtual. I had one cohort that was in person, but it's really a great thing for me because I get to see the growth from beginning to end and then just kind of the bonds that people have. So you all are in different cohorts. And so you have been able to not only meet each other, but for the first time this year, because of somebody's suggestion on this call, the idea of a retreat. Kate and I were having dinner. I was in a client meeting and I just happened to be able to have dinner with her. Before then, we were just knew each other from Zoom, and we got to meet in person. She was like, "Hey, would you ever think about doing a retreat?" And I was like, "Well, maybe. Let's talk about it." And so we did the first one in April of this year, and it seems like forever ago and also just yesterday to me. And we brought together all of the alumni from all of the cohorts. So of all of the 8 cohorts, and we came to Dallas and we spent a couple of days together to just network, build community, and continue to kind of pour into your own self-development. So I'm really excited to kind of just talk about your experiences in the retreat and then just group coaching in general. But I'm going to stop there. And I'll ask this to Kate. What made you want to even do an in-person thing? What makes that appealing?
Couple things. One, I'm a fully remote employee. And so really, I think this applies to the coaching as a group as well, is sometimes I lack community because I'm not seeing people face to face. I'm not interacting with different departments outside of my very specific work. And so, meeting like-minded women and talking through very vulnerable topics was really important and really helpful to me. And I just thought, if I'm going to spend 6 months with this group of women online talking through these things, I want to meet them in person. I think you can build really strong relationships over Zoom calls, but there is something special about being in the room with people, particularly people that you've gone through a journey with. And I think the other part of it about being excited to have all the cohorts come together is I could expand that community of women with not a lot of effort. I mean, to be fair, Laura, like you put in most of the effort to get us all there. And so, and it was what I expected and more. It really, when I came home after the retreat, I just had this sense of energy, but also so much peace because of these relationships that I had built within the group coaching and then in Dallas.
I am so happy that I heard the word community and like just trust. And it felt like in the room, like you all had, the trust within your own cohorts. But then the trust extended very easily to other cohorts that you had just met, some of them for the first time that day. And it was really fun to see that, to be an observer of it, but then to see that, I don't know, just how fast, I guess, that trust was built. And so from a content perspective, you all went through a refresher of Values First, which is Values First training, Values First Leader certification. That's the fancy title of it, which you all went through and got your certification. And then the next day, it was kind of more self-development and just more specific retreat focus on what you all had kind of requested and needed, kind of more just in time and more reflection and talking about how to put some of your values into use personally for your own journey wherever you kind of were on your career path. And so I loved that, and I saw what I loved the most from like a talent development, like super geeky nerd, like I built the thing like content wise, and I was hoping it would be okay. And it was really fun for me to see that you guys interacted with the material and with each other in the way that I hoped. And most specifically, I had one concern. I was like, well, they've seen a lot of this before. And in our group coaching, we basically go through the Values First framework together, each module a different step. And I was like, well, they've seen this, but hopefully the way that I built this, it should still work. Let's hope it does. Fingers crossed that it's kind of a journey that you can dip into and out of when you need. And it should be pretty evergreen in terms of it should still resonate with you. You'll still get something out of it. So I'd love to hear if that was the case for any of you. But first, just in general, what was your kind of biggest takeaway or best part, I guess? Let's start with best part. What was the best part of the retreat for each of you?
So I totally second what Kate said about community and being in person. And I thought it was so interesting to, in group coaching, we had a handful of folks come together who at the surface really don't have a lot in common. And as we started working, we had a lot in common. Mm. And, being able to see that within the cohort was one of the most fundamentally neat things that I experienced there, just because that was something that I haven't really thought a lot about. But I thought that one of the biggest takeaways for me within the retreat was going back to, we have a cohort of 3 to 5 people, and now we're in a room full of cohorts, and it was almost instantaneous that now we had a cohort of 25 people. Mm. And you look around that room and we had very little in common. We didn't look alike. We didn't have the same jobs. We don't have the same titles. We don't have the same values. We don't have the same dreams. And when it came down to it, every single person in that room had the same story. And there was nothing that was immediately connecting and powerful like that was. Mm. And that was really quite cool. And it happened really quickly on the first day, which allowed for the rest of the retreat to not feel in any way. I mean, it was vulnerable, but it didn't feel icky vulnerable, right? It felt like you could really show up and be who you were. And the space was somewhere where you could be like, I might need to take some steps out of my comfort zone, but everybody here is here to catch me. Mm-hmm. And so, you could do some of that work. And even though we'd been through the framework, it had been almost a year, several months, since we'd been through it. And you could really spend some time to explore what changed, what's the same, what's going on. And then I would say, kind of wrapping it up with my favorite part. I don't know that I have a favorite part, but I thought that the very last thing we did, going to the Arboretum, again, I was like, okay, well, I'll go, I'll not go, whatever. But just being able to sit together in nature and be grounded, mm-hmm. and just kind of reflect on what we had done really set me up. Like, I lived on that globe for weeks after that. Mm-hmm. Right. And just being able to say, okay, we're all here together. We're all on the same journey. I'm grounded in the earth. I'm out in nature. We're all together. And then we dispersed, but we didn't feel like we left. Mm-hmm. Right. It just kind of continued in spirit. And so I think that's probably my favorite thing about the retreat.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marilyn.
I would also say that I came into the retreat. I hadn't started the cohort, my cohort yet. So I was learning some of the framework for the very first time. So while some people were going back and reaffirming, yep, these are my values, or making some slight adjustments, I was being exposed to some of it, which then ended up helping set me up for the success of going through the cohort and reaffirming during that time, yep, let me really hone in on what are my values. How can I set these boundaries? How can I align them to my life? All of the things that you learn in the program. But one of the things that I came into, I had just found out about 2 weeks prior that I was getting laid off. So I was coming into in a very vulnerable state, really kind of feeling, a little bit like, oh my gosh, my life is now a bit in upheaval. But what was so wonderful was being around this group of folks who were very centered, who were very focused, some of which had already experienced some of the things I had gone through. And so, being able to interact with them and see some of the ways that they were able to navigate through. It was the first time I had ever been laid off. So there was a lot of emotions and just a lot of things that were going on inside of me. But to be around, it was a perfect time for me to get together and feel that connection, get that community, really see that I'm not the only one. People have gone through it, and that here's some of the tips that they practiced. Some people feeling like, I don't know what my next step is going to be. And that was kind of where I was too at the moment. And so just having that affirmation and that chance to make that connection was huge. And like Marilyn, I walked away from that all three of those days that we had together, just feeling so much better and feeling like, okay, I got this. I can move forward. I know what I'm doing. I have some direction and some guidance, and I can move forward. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah, I love that you just, Tara, that you just touched on that you were all kind of coming from different places too, that you found that community. I think that was a theme in kind of all of your answers, really.
Yeah.
Kate, did you want to add anything to that? I know I kind of asked you earlier too, but what else would you add to that?
I'm not sure I have anything else to say because both what Marilyn and Tara said, I would echo. It's the ability of that group to create safe community instantaneously was incredibly beautiful to see. And really, I think for me, you know, I came into group coaching and I still struggle with this is a lot of imposter syndrome. And I think being in the room with a whole bunch of strangers, right, and hearing a similar theme of their experiences in their professional lives, even though they're very disparate, it was very powerful to me to say, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, and for some reason, knowing I'm not the only one that deals with that feeling less than or imposter syndrome, it almost proved to me that what my head is telling me is lies, essentially.
Mhm.
Right? Like, and I can't quite explain why that's the case, as opposed to people that know me really well saying you can do this, or like, you know, you're not an imposter, all that kind of stuff. But something about that the energy that was in the room was telling me like, you've got this and you can do this, and all of these strangers believe in you, and that means something. And now they're not strangers, which is also great.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're not strangers now. So I heard a couple of the themes of some of the things that maybe were not so great. So we heard imposter syndrome. I'll add a couple and then I want you to kind of pile them on. Just shout them out. So we've got imposter syndrome, maybe some burnout. I think maybe some cultures that weren't aligned. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
can throw that out there. You can describe what some of that looked like or how it felt, or what other kind of themes came up that you found that others were also feeling that you did. The negative, yucky stuff, the icky.
You know, one of the things that I was thinking about when I was kind of thinking about this podcast was back to the session that we did around how bragging just felt ick.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, all of us were in that same place around we're all doing amazing things. And sometimes we're not even willing to claim that on our own, let alone claim that in a group. And it was it was positive, but it was also negative because you're sitting in a room full of super successful, high achieving women, and all of us are like, I hate that.
Yeah, I don't like talking about
I
my
don't like talking about
accomplishments.
what I've done. And
Yeah.
you know, and so it's like, you know, just being able to have that conversation, like I had never thought about it. That was kind of like the hidden bad things, because it's, you know.
Yeah, that it's hard to do and it's in an uncomfortable space, but then we
Mm-hmm.
were able to kind of practice in a very safe space. And I thought you guys
Yeah.
did very well very quickly in that exercise.
And you know, saying culture and just culture misalignment,
Hmm.
like that was one of the things that when I was kind of closing the gap on being able to talk about my achievements and things like that, you know, I was coming from an environment where I'd been laid off. There was a definite cultural misalignment, and you know, that was something that I always thought was my fault,
Mm.
you know. And so really being able to kind of voice that through group coaching and then reaffirm that in the retreat.
Yeah, one of the things this kind of goes along with the imposter syndrome, kind of how people were feeling. I think what resonated with me and has stuck with me for so long is a statement that you said, Laura, about, you've got to peer yourself up and approach a situation where it's not a boss and subordinate, but you need to think of yourself as an equal and going into that. And I, had written down a statement that you said, you're not here, you're here to serve, not be a servant. And to recognize that, yes, I have things to offer, and yes, I have a voice and I need to use it. And obviously, need to do that within the political navigation that you need to go through in any organization or interaction. But to be able to recognize that, no, I am just as equal as you. My title may be a little bit different. I may be, a female and you're a male, however you want to see it, as being that potentially that thinking that less than, and showing up small. And just going through that and hearing that statement really has made a huge difference in being like, no, I can rise above this. I can embody this whole thing. Like I can brag about myself and feel good about being able to do that, because I have some really awesome achievements that I need to be able to share and tell people about. And then not feel like, well, yeah, that was just kind of something that I did, whatever. But no, to like, no, I did this and I do have something to offer. And while, you may be X title than me, I still can bring something to the table, and I can level up to that and really show up in a different way. And so it's given me some different perspectives, and just thinking about as I'm approaching conversations with people that may be at higher levels or whatever, that I may have been a bit more timid about perhaps in the past, to be able to say, no, I'm going to show up differently. I'm going to approach this differently. I have a different intention about going into those conversations than I did in the past.
Yeah, I love that the examples that you all have brought up, because it's really an example to me. I'm kind of putting the pieces together of like things that is not all my content, right? This is the values first content is mine, but I'm a lifelong learner, and one of my values is development and growth. So the way I describe development is development of others, like this and this podcast, and why I'm a coach and work with teams and all the good stuff. And growth for my values is for me. Like I am growing and learning. And by doing that, I hope to bring some of my learnings to you all. So two of those topics are being able to talk about your accomplishments and advocate for yourself. And I learned how to do that through, through lots of people in my career, but also a really great book is from Meredith Feynman. It's called Brag Better. Had her on the podcast, I think in season 1. We'll link it in the show notes, but it's a great book if you've not read it before. And so as we were talking about, advocating for yourself and building strategic relationships, we did bring up those tension points of it sometimes is hard to do that and advocate for yourself. And how do you do that? So we did that in the retreat. And then the other topic that Tara brought up, this idea of peering yourself, I learned from my coach, Leah Niederthal, and she has a podcast called Smart Gets Paid, and she teaches executive women consultants how to be really great consultants, build the business that they want, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I learned that from her, and it's just a very powerful mindset shift for me that I shared as just an example. And I'm so glad that you resonated with it, because a lot of these things are mindset shifts. That is an absolute mindset shift. You all know what it is to be a peer, and you show up differently when you are a peer, right? You show up more confidently. You know that you're respected. Like all this stuff comes from like your own definition and schema of knowing what a peer is, because that you have been a peer in so many places. And so this mindset shift of peering yourself has been so helpful for me as I'm coaching sometimes leaders that are, absolutely higher than me in hierarchy, who have have led lots of different teams, lots of different stuff that I may have done in my career, maybe have not done. But being able to walk into those virtual or real rooms, being able to bring that confidence and kind of leave imposter syndrome outside those rooms
Yeah.
is a really nice, not shortcut, but just mindset shift. And so I'd love to integrate just the different stuff that I've learned and I've picked up from the people that I learned from to you all as well. And so we were able to integrate some of those ideas plus the stuff from the Values First framework and Values First into kind of our learnings of the day. And I thought it meant it was really great to see, you know, some of the commonalities and struggles and tensions and conflicts and all those things, while unfortunately or fortunately we're all we're all going through them,
Yeah.
that there's some tools that we can use and learn from each other too. I loved also that so many people brought up their own experiences or their own learnings to help somebody else. I loved seeing that as well. Any other thoughts on that topic before we move on to the next one?
I think when we talked through networking, right? Like that was another like, ugh, you know, like a little icky
Yeah.
or whatever. And I think there's a lot of crossover between the networking ick and the bragging ick. I think from my perspective, what always gets me about networking is feeling like it's hard to ask for things. Like I don't want to be an imposition, and so I felt like the exercise that we went through at the retreat, it was helpful to kind of reframe how you think about networking, right? Especially if you're going to a networking event. Like why else are you there except to ask for help, right? And so I felt like that was a really helpful exercise to do a mindset shift.
Yeah, and that one for me personally has always been a hard one. And so that is content that I teach, and the high level view of it is to kind of reframe how we're thinking about networking and this idea of networking. Like most of my life, I'm like, ick, I don't want to do that. I'm an introvert. Like I don't want to meet a million people at the end of a long day anyway. Don't know what to say. Don't know what, like, can I just sit and I'll go to the thing. I want to sit with a friend at the table in the back. Like that would be beautiful, and learn what I want to learn and then go home, or maybe not go at all. So the biggest shift for me is even just the definition of it. And we talked about that. And it's really this idea of strategic networking, and it's the mutual benefit, and creating mutual benefit from that relationship. And often, to Kate's point, we are doing all the things for all the people that we, have mentored, for peers. We're helping them out. We're introducing them to somebody. But less often, we are using that mutual benefit, and we're never asking for anything from any of our network. And so the power of kind of going through that content was like, hey, this is who I am as a leader. This is what I believe in. These are my values. And this is what I'm, really great at, that build of then like being able to advocate for yourself, and then asking your trusted network for the thing that you need. And I think that that build for me has been different because it's that feels a lot safer. It's like, oh, well, logically that makes total sense. Like it's not networking. It's like telling the people that know, like, and trust me that I need their help. Okay, that feels achievable.
Yeah.
And it really feels authentic, because once you kind of do that mindset shift of, networking ick to, oh, authentic relationship building. Okay. That feels right. So I think each of you were able to kind of combat some of the negativity, or even just shift a bit in terms of what networking even means. And then actually what I love is actually doing something with it and actually asking, because we're not going to get anything if we don't ask, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And just think about all the things that people ask you for, and that we're like, oh, sure, of course, I'd love to introduce you to this person or that person, or have you thought of this, or whatever it is. And often we're asking for people's experience, their time, not huge, ginormous things, but for you to be connected to something that you need and want.
I think I walked away from it as like, I like to be a helpful person.
Mm-hmm.
So by asking for help, I'm creating an opportunity for someone else to experience the pleasure of helping someone, right? Like, so it was really, it was very helpful. And it was good to practice it too with in a safe space, right?
Yeah. And I also just whenever you get those from people, usually it's maybe sometimes those requests. It's not always from somebody that you hear from every day. So sometimes it's just fun to hear from people. And so we talked about other ways to just make sure that it feels safe for you to have even more of those conversations by connecting with people even more and supporting them along the way so that when you do ask, it doesn't feel weird, right? So those are just some of the examples of some of the topics that we covered, kind of given the struggles or tension points or kind of ick factor on some of those topics that all of us kind of face in life and work. So that's more of the content. Let's talk about a little bit more about we've talked a little bit about this already, the power of community. But how have just relationships in general been impactful to you, whether it was through your group coaching cohort or through the retreat? Let's talk more about relationships now.
Our cohort was active, I'll say, in group coaching last fall, so a year ago. And we wrapped it up and then almost immediately went into the retreat. And that felt like a great bookend, but it also felt like a great jumping off point. And a year later, we're still meeting.
I love it.
And it's one of those things that just seeing that come up on the calendar, I'm really excited to be able to touch base with my group and feel like that I have a place where my tribe is going to come together, and we don't have an agenda around learning, but we have a genuine interest in each other and what's going on and helping each other. And just by the fact that that's continued after we had to me is what the relationship was all about.
It creates a natural state of accountability too, right? Like, I think sometimes when I hear the word accountability, it actually has a little bit of an ick factor, right? Like big brother is coming to get you or whatever. But continuing to meet with people that you've developed these strong relationships with, everyone has a deep sense of buy-in to the idea of values, right? Like, we wouldn't have done this if we didn't believe in it. And it's a really natural opportunity for others to check in with you, to hear your story or hear your frustration in the moment and say, well, what about this? Well, maybe you need to ground into this value you have, and it's not an assignment, right? It's just, it's become part of who we are. And I think too, it's, again, going back to the community part, for me, I know that I have this group of women that are cheering from the sidelines. I don't hear from them every day necessarily, but I know they've got my back. I know they want me to be successful. And I think that the not having them in my day-to-day professional or personal life, it's an even stronger impact to me that they're there and they believe in me. So it's been wonderful. I feel like I have lifelong friends now that I never would have met if I hadn't done this.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as I said, I was starting my cohort and we're just about to end in the time frame in the next month or so. And it was when we first joined together to have our kickoff, we were all feeling a bit, I had just gotten laid off. One of the other ladies had just gotten laid off. Somebody else was feeling a bit challenged in her job, ended up, she too found herself in some transition as well. So three of us were going through this, kind of some of the worst feelings that we could have when we're just feeling really low and what's next for us and where do we go from here. So it's been really fun to see us all over the last 6 months to have come into our own, figured out what we're doing. We've all each decided we're going to start our own business, do our own things. And I think the values first framework that we created and understanding who we are, what's important to us, why is it important to us, has been one of those most impactful things that we can then say, okay, here's how we're going to structure our businesses. These are the things we are going to do. These are the things we're not going to do because that's not going to be fun. It's not going to be in alignment with who we are. And it's been just a really great education and experience to be going through and feeling like I'm not going through this alone. Other people are having these same feelings and to be able to share best practices. So as we're each starting our own businesses, we're talking about how to set it up and some of the things that we need to do. And it's like, oh, I forgot I need to do that. How do you do that? Let me learn some more information about this or that or whatever. So it's been this great, once again, that community word, that it's been a great community that has come together and we are each in different locations. Somebody's on the East Coast, somebody's on the West Coast. I'm in here in Texas. So we're navigating time zones and but feeling like we're all one as a whole group has been just really incredible.
Yeah, I love the that everybody kind of comes in at a different point. Some people are maybe feeling like they want to look for a different position. Maybe they don't feel complete alignment. Maybe sometimes people are just in a position and they're like, I need to just get further clarity. I don't even know what I want. I just know that I'm not happy. Other people have just started a role and they're super excited and then they're want to do whatever they can to set themselves up for success in that role. And then sometimes people decide, to your point, like to, maybe I want to, go out on my own. And so it's really cool to see like that, just clarity is something that people are looking for and they can find through that process and through each other. And then just hearing from each other's experiences, I think gives confidence and courage that there's lots of different paths that you can take and give yourself the permission, I guess, to kind of be curious on what some of those are. And then specifically with your cohort, Tara, it's been really cool to see the courage and the like of people going out on their own and serving companies in just a different way. So I love seeing all of the different outcomes and variants of everybody's kind of actions and career aspirations. And let's be honest, this is not just about career stuff, right? This is about whole person.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're not even talking about work stuff, and that's some of the best conversations. It's relationships, it's self-trust, it's doing things for yourself and prioritizing some of those things that most often are actually not work related. So what else would you say about anything from the values first framework or from this experience that's just been most beneficial or helpful for your life and career? I know that's kind of a big question.
I have started, really leaning into it and really looking at almost every decision, every interaction. And now that I have such clarity around what my values are, to understand, oh, that's why I may be in conflict because this particular value isn't being met. Being able to think about, I said I'm starting my own business, the clients I want to work with, the companies they're a part of, what, is that, do I align even with them as on a fundamental kind of approach? So it's really been something that I think about. I kind of balance almost every decision, every interaction against it. And to have that framework has been really beneficial and life-changing, honestly. As I have gone through this journey over the last 6 months, just of myself and my life, incorporating this in, I think is one of the key factors to helping me feel like, yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. I am living 100% in my values, and I am, really excited about what the next chapter may be for me because I'm so grounded in that approach.
I love it. Thank you, Tara.
I think that it's brought me to a place where I'm actively looking at how specific tasks or events or what have you aligns with my values, right? And I think prior to this, it was a much more passive, like, well, this job's not making me happy. Whereas I think now, if I'm approaching a difficult conversation, or, I'm not in line with what my boss is telling me I need to do when it comes to, whatever, employee management or whatever, I can look at that and say, okay, is this actually aligning with my values? And if it's not, is there a way for me to take this experience or take this task and have it align in some way with my values, right? Because a lot of, especially in the work environment, there are just things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily get to, we make a lot of decisions, but we don't get to make all the decisions. And so I think I've come to a place where it's become very granular, and that's helped me, work through conflict or misalignment with my company or with my role, that previously I would have just thrown my hands up and said, nope, this isn't going to work for me. And so while I'm still on the journey of assessing that overall alignment, do I stay or do I go? At least in that moment, I can come to a place of peace with what I'm being asked to do or what I'm being instructed to do.
And, for me, similar to what Kate and Tara have said, the framework and being able to articulate my values has given me a yardstick, both personally, in my job, in my knitwear design business, pick all the different spheres, but it's given me a yardstick, but it's also given me a vocabulary. Mm-hmm. So, as I've been going through this journey, I've started working at a new company with a new team. And now I have new executives, and now we're building new teams. But it gives us a way to kind of live in the discomfort of building a team, but building a common vocabulary to talk about why we're uncomfortable, mm-hmm. which then turns around and makes a stronger team. Mm-hmm. And, so for me, I would say over the last 6 or 7 months, that's really how the framework has really come to life, because I've been navigating a series of different new teams. We've been having to kind of break apart old teams, create new ones. And, mm-hmm. And none of the teams had an identified, explicitly developed culture. And so being able to help all of those groups of folks come together and have a common vocabulary, to me, has been really impactful, not just for me individually, but for us to be able to talk to each other that is not in context of what are the tasks that we have to go do, what are the mm-hmm. the things that we're being told or the decisions we need to make, but who do we want to be, mm-hmm. collectively as a group, how do we want to present ourselves to this company? And it's given everybody kind of a level playing field, because some of the folks have been there for 25 or 30 years, and some have been there, months. And so it really allowed everybody to have a voice on the team and have the vocabulary to talk about what's okay and what's not okay, and how we're going to make decisions so that we can get to what we need to do very quickly.
I love that. So the themes that I heard, it's, the values first framework gives each of you kind of a way to make decisions in lots of different ways, whether inside or outside of work. And then I love that, Marilyn, you mentioned that it's not just for you, it's a language that lots of people can have, because everybody has values, whether you know them or not. Right. I have lots of tools that can help you figure out what yours are, obviously, but you can use them in so many different ways. When you're building the culture with teams, with organizations, to resolve conflict, to understand priorities, to make decisions, and all of those kinds of things. And so I'm just so thankful that you've all shared your experience, And it's just, it is so fulfilling and very aligned for me to just see all of the impacts that all of you have had in the world. It more than warms my heart. And I'm so grateful to have partnered and worked with each of you. And we're going to continue to do that as we continue to live in this community that we've all built together. And so I really hope that you guys will come next year in person to the retreat too, because now I feel like I can't not do another retreat. Like we have to see each other
Yes.
again. And I'm really hoping, like I'm crossing my fingers that like maybe it could be like when the next book comes out, we can have a party. What do you think?
Oh,
Love
that
it.
would be great.
Love
Yeah.
it.
That sound good? We can celebrate.
Yeah.
So that's the tentative plan, but I'll let you know more about book number 2 and release date and how we'll launch and celebrate and come together and continue to build community. But I just want to say thank you so, so much for sharing your experiences and just being here together and showing up for each other and for me. I really appreciate all of you.
Well,
Thanks,
we
Lauren.
appreciate you too.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.